This week on Sundry Style, we are here with Jamie Ferguson. Jamie has had a crooked path as any photographer in arriving at his profession. He studied law at the University of Aberdeen, but whilst he was there, he realised he wanted to go into acting. It was economic necessity which brought him to the menswear industry. He began working at fashion house Dax, but began seeking a brand which embraced the burgeoning scene of photocentric social media. So he applied to Drake's, working as online editor and then marketing and content manager. Jamie travelled with the company to menswear meccas such as Pitti Uomo in Florence. All the while, regardless of whether he knew it first or not, he was honing his craft as a fashion photographer. From 2015, he went freelance and hasn't looked back since. Jamie, thanks for joining me.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me, man.
So I'm just curious to know, I guess it's difficult being a photographer and the whole lockdown thing, but I understand that have you just had a shoot?
Yeah, it's funny because obviously, I mean, for the last sort of four or 5 months or so, obviously everybody's found it very tricky, and especially myself, considering the majority of my job is you've got to be traveling, and usually to some regard. So that all kind of had got cut off, and slowly now things are starting to kind of open up, not only just in terms of the travel links, but as well as brands wanting to shoot and able to shoot content now. So no, I actually just got back from London the other night, it was nice, kind of like first foray back into the kind of the new normal, so to speak, or whatever. So it was it was good. And then it's funny. This usually what happens is you think you just have one shoot and then nothing else is going to come along. But now everybody's kind of just starting to line stuff up again more and more now that, as I say, things are kind of opening up a little more, and that all the brands essentially need content. So they're getting stacked upon one another pretty quickly. So.
Oh well, I'm sure that's a relief for you. I understand. Was it a jewelry brand that you were?
Yes. So it's a company that I've worked for many times before, who are kind of friends of mine as well. Alice made this, who make beautiful, kind of very industrial-inspired men's jewelry and women's jewelry now as well, actually. And then so it was a day shoot for them, kind of shooting a bit of behind the scenes and for kind of a new initiative that they're going to be rolling out soon. And then just kind of a bit of a shoot with Simon Crompton of Permanent Style, just again the kind of the usual lifestyle imagery that he needs for his website.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I interviewed Simon last week, actually, just name dropping there, Clang. But yeah, he's really cool, and I know that obviously you've worked with him in the past quite a lot, and you bring a nice angle to his work, I think, because a lot of his journalism is so analytical, and I think that's unusual. That's really a big virtue of his work. But obviously you're known for bringing out maybe a more personal, fun side. Not that Simon isn't fun, but but you
sure. He's really not. It's a real struggle.
And
no, not at all.
I wondered, how would you characterize your style of photography? Is it kind of a bit too glib to say it's just fun, or is there more to it? How would you describe it?
It's funny because I think, you can probably get in as much detail about this as you'd want. It's a funny thing because I think, having never studied photography, like say at the university level, or being interested in it when I was younger, it's, I think, certainly, and then now essentially pursuing a career in it. It's, for me, I'm constantly looking at it as a ever evolving kind of beast. So it's, I kind of started off, the constant that's always been throughout my photography is basically my interest in menswear. And that's, I think, the thing that really helps me with when I'm shooting, is that the majority of the brands that I work with, or the majority of the clients that I'm kind of shooting, I am very aware of their product, how it's made, where it's made, because I'm just a total nerd about that stuff. So I'm kind of really into it. So in a way, it's funny because it's never, even that has not necessarily been a conscious thing that kind of, I'm like, okay, well, I know that it's this stitching, so I need to shoot that, but it's kind of just stuff that my eyes naturally drawn to. And so that was kind of almost the kind of the start of my career, was just the fact that I was essentially just super enthusiastic about what I was shooting. And then from there, it's been nice to kind of be able to slowly evolve that style. So in terms of how I edit, how I frame things, and it's a lot of it is down to being inspired by other photographers that I've seen, like both contemporary and past photographers. It's just stuff, just playing around at home, like trying trial and error, just trying out different things. And I think really in the last kind of couple years, I've kind of found that a lot of the imagery that I enjoy shooting, and a lot of imagery that I'm particularly drawn to personally, there is that kind of fun lightness, kind of levity to it. And that certainly was something that I was kind of able to explore more when I was shooting the book. When I was shooting my book, This Guy, was that it was kind of one-on-one. It was just myself and the subject I was shooting, and the majority of the guys were able to give me quite a bit of their time. So we spent anywhere from 3 hours together to whole days. So we were really able to kind of get them to open up and, get them to loosen up in front of the camera. And a lot of the images that when I was selecting them for the book afterwards, the ones that, again, as I said, I was drawn to were the ones where they're laughing or smiling. And so it's a tricky thing, because it's then like, well, what is your photography? I'm just trying to get somebody to smile or laugh every time. And it's not necessarily that. It's kind of almost still, I'm trying to explore, well, what's going to be the evolution of that? Like, how do I take this further and make it something that's maybe even more engaging beyond that? And it's an ongoing process. So I weirdly don't think, I hate to characterize my photography with just in one certain way. But certainly that is kind of what I'm aiming, that kind of, as you say, that kind of the fun is certainly what I'm aiming for in everything that I shoot, usually, just trying to at least get some element of that.
That's really interesting that you say you're conscious that you're drawn to something. It's not necessarily, obviously any photographer is conscious that you are drawn to something, but you're conscious of that fact. It reminds me of I can't remember who said it, one of the imagists, either William Carlos Williams or Ezra Pound, who said he gave the adage, notice what you notice, which is it's a poetic trick, but I don't think I'm wrong in saying that this is what you do as well. And I think perhaps not going to not training formally, you haven't got all this mental clutter of what I should be looking for. Instead, you just more naturally, noticing what you notice. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, no, I think that's probably certainly a good way of putting it. It's mainly I have other like younger photographers who are coming up, or people who just asking us about photography or taking a photograph or whatever. And I'm almost, one of my big adages is pretty much just like, it's so much trial and error. And like with, the advent of, technology and, camera phones, and, it's so easy for everybody to kind of be able to take good pictures nowadays. And I'm like, just go out there and have fun with it. And I certainly suppose that, as you say, that not having the background in it and not necessarily being almost constrained to a certain viewpoint means that I can basically screw up a lot more and be like, okay, that didn't quite work. Let's try this. But equally, there's stuff that I've tried out that I'm like, I don't even know if this, this might be terrible. And it's turned out to be, it's turned out really, really, really well.
That's cool. I kind of feel that's kind of the same way. I'm kind of realizing that with clothes, actually, kind of trying stuff on which I really don't think would suit me, and then realizing that, okay, I can wear this with this now. And I remember listening to you're speaking to Alex Svetkovich on Hankett Radio, and you're saying you love it when you've got this item of clothing and you bought it because maybe you initially like it, and then you're like, what do I do with this now? And you speak to someone like or like, how can I wear this? And they might recommend something, and you're like, this just opens up so many more channels for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wondered, with going more into clothes now. Is there anything that are you? What are you noticing? What you notice in terms of clothes wise? What's on your radar at the minute?
Brand wise,
Yeah, brands.
it's funny because it's like uh, it's so tricky because I feel very much spoiled for choice these days, particularly in the area is in terms of menswear, because it's so much easier now for brands. Like, you don't need a brick and mortar store now to start a clothing line. Like, you can sell it online, and so many guys and it can be niche. It can be, we're going to sell one thing, that's it. So we've had this kind of plethora of menswear brands that have kind of exploded, and it's like we all have access to them now. It's like, before, I remember, I mean, not that long ago, but obviously a while, like, over 10 years, so maybe, but like, when you couldn't, it was much harder to order stuff online, and like, it was much harder to kind of get something shipped from the States or shipped from Asia or Japan or something like that. And so now it's so much more, it's so much easier. And as I say, it's fantastic. Like, I personally love it because you have, it just as you were saying, it just opens up the possibilities so much more. So it's weird. There's a lot of brands that are my kind of staples that, so like, obviously, it's not necessarily a new brand, but Drake's obviously is, having worked there, and still remain a huge fan of them, and kind of seeing how they've evolved their look from essentially a tie manufacturer to now a total look brand, and they branched out into kind of more sportswear, and embraced that kind of like colorful, quirky side that they've always had. So I really love kind of, and they certainly do their imagery. They do it incredibly well, and certainly that makes me want to buy the items and stuff like that. Drake's is pretty good. I'm very intrigued by there's a Parisian brand called Husbands Paris, which is I have no idea. I'd never want to try to describe exactly what it is they do, but they have this incredible, like, sexy French 80s kind of Roxy music kind of vibe going on. And again, all the guys who work, Nicolas Gabard, who owns Husbands, and all the gentlemen that he has working in the store all look the part. And again, you go in, you're just like, man, I'd like to look like this. Like, I'm a short kind of like Canadian Celtic kind of gingery kind of guy. Like, I don't think I'm going to look like this, but like, give me some Chelsea boots and some slightly flared like suit trousers. Like, this will look sick. So I think what they're doing is really interesting. It's just little things that kind of punctuate that kind of world, which are kind of just that little bit different. So they're doing, I really like what they're doing. And then, big fan of Kamishita from Japan, obviously. I think I think in the last couple of years, he's kind of found he's kind of pushed, I think, down a more focused route on the kind of like a more 50s, 60s kind of vibe, and the kind of development of fabrics that he does are always really interesting. And the cuts, especially, like, I was luckily able to pick up one of his terry cloth polos from this season, and the width on the collar points, and then the length of the sleeves, were like huge, but like nothing I was like, oh, this is amazing, like very kind of retro kind of vibe to it, which is great. And then there's a gentleman who, it's weird to class him as a friend. It's one of those kind of like internet relationships where we've never met in person, but like we've been speaking, we know each other. My friend, a gentleman I know, Nathaniel Asaraf, who is, him and his family, they own a vintage store in Gothenburg in Sweden, Broadway and Sons, and Nathaniel started his own brand online called Casatlantic, and they've just done a series of essentially like naval and kind of mid-century inspired trousers. They're all white, trousers and shorts, I should say. So 3 cuts of trousers and 2 cuts of shorts, made in Casablanca, from where Nathaniel's family's from. Which again, it's like, as I was saying, at the start of this ramble, was that the fact that this guy can basically, I don't exactly know the backing or everything like that, but it's just like, can just launch this brand and, and be fully, aware of, this is the story, this is what we're doing, and this is the kind of the look, and this is the vibe of what we do. And and they're doing, again, some really, and it's just trousers, and like, as you say, 3 pairs of trousers and 2 pairs of shorts, but already it's like the look is phenomenal. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do going forward, how they build on that.
Whoa, that sounds pretty cool. I haven't heard of them, actually. I'm not sure if this is germane to all kind of Swedish menswear companies, but
Sure.
with the kind of the direction that you said, they seem to have a very clear direction of where they want to go. It reminds me of the others of Sam and Amel in Sweden. They're very particular with what they want to do with dressing their clients in lots of neutrals, greys, whites. Are you
Absolutely.
do you like that? Or are you more kind of, I know obviously you're wearing your plaid. Are you more into color, or are you drawn to those neutrals?
It's funny because, like, again, both, I'd say. I'm lucky enough to own one of Sam and Amel's. They made a suit for me. I bought a suit from them a while back, which is just like a mid-gray fresco wool suit. And it's weird because I wouldn't necessarily it's funny because depending on the brand that you're wearing, you're almost kind of like, when I'm wearing Drake's, I'm like slightly more drawn to the color, but if I'm wearing the Sam and Mel suit, I'm like, no, I have to tone this down. Like, I can't be wearing anything outrageous with it. But again, it's it's similar to kind of, as I was saying, with the imagery and playing around with your wardrobe, what you're wearing and stuff, and like just trying to find, because I weirdly had a conversation with somebody just when I was in London recently she mentioned Crocs. And she was just like, oh, like, I don't like Crocs, they're so ugly. And one of the things that I've learned over the years being in the industry is that I'm like, don't ever discount anything, like either an item or a color or a pattern, because one day you'll maybe see somebody wearing that item, and you're like, oh wow, okay, that's cool, that's how I can wear it. So I'm like, and I know that they're hideous shoes, but I'm kind of like, I was kind of saying to her, I was like, maybe one day you'll see somebody wearing a pair of Crocs and you'll be like, whoa, okay, those are pretty dope. And so similarly, it's it's fun as well, like to kind of like, I'm very much of the thought, like, why restrict yourself to one color, one palette, one me personally, because I'm like, I love just playing around with all that kind of stuff. So I mean, I understand the uniform aspect of it as well, of having, this is my look, this is what I do, but I'm like, that's not for me. I'm like, I see that, I want to try that. I'm like, oh, but this is completely different, but I want to try that as well. And it's like, as I say, it's trial and error. You find what works for you, and then kind of find your kind of sweet spot within that, whatever spectrum it is that you want. And it's just happens that my spectrum is like very, very broad. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I also like I'm kind of drawn to drop another name, Clang.
Sure.
I interviewed Mordecai a while ago, and I was Mordecai Rubenstein, and obviously he's known for dressing, he dresses from in tie dye, and then any kind of double-breasted suit or whatever. And for that interview, I was wearing like a farmer's tweed check suit, but I had Crocs on my feet, and I just thought the Crocs are the best part of this outfit. I don't know. I just like kind of almost antagonizing the people who see me. I just want to. I don't. Are you? Do you like? Because I know. Simon Crompton is very much like, he's like, I won't wear, a 30s vintage suit because that's too much like costume, he said. but so he's very much, you know, dressing for the everyday. But I kind of like throwing in things which are just like, you know, just clash and they're just entirely arbitrary. Are you kind of like, I want to be stylish, but I also want to blend in, or do you kind of go like to hell with it?
I certainly think like personality wise, there is an element of peacockery to me. Like I do like the idea of slightly, you know, setting yourself aside from, you know, the average guy on the street or whatever. But I suppose that's never extended into anything particularly ostentatious or clashing for me. Like within what I like, how I feel, how I like dressing, and how confident I can be with it. I would still be within the realm of kind of, no, it's just going to be. I mean, it's so silly, but like, I mean, the things that I consider to be just normal in terms of the menswear world, like there's a kind of the huge thing right now is of, you know, like wearing a suit or jacket with a baseball cap, and like, you know, this kind of cap culture has kind of exploded everywhere, like the dad caps basically, and I'm like, that's become a huge thing, and I quite enjoy that, and kind of, you know, kind of wearing something like that, and it's not particularly, as you say, out there and ostentatious, but certainly sets me aside from, you know, the average, you know, guy going to an office in London or whatever. Yeah. Actually, I say that, I'm like, I don't know, I've seen a lot of guys in London just wearing, but a lot of times it comes down to the cut of the suit, or I mean, I'm speaking particularly about tailoring right now, but or like, you know, jeans, for example, like we're having jeans that have a slightly higher rise to them, or slightly wider, like, you know, wider cut to them and stuff like that. So it's I think certainly the way I'd approach it is a little more subtle and say, I'm just going to wear bright orange. But at the same time, as you know, I was saying before, I'm like, if I've seen somebody wear a bright orange jumper or whatever, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, I see how you're wearing that. You know, you can incorporate that into it. And again, as I say, I'd never say no to it if I saw it in a way that I thought I could pull off. And then of course you try it, and you're like, I can't pull this off, so I'm gonna leave it at this point.
No. And do you see yourself kind of wearing caps and suits in your old age? Do you kind of envision how you will? Sorry to like fast forward to the end of your life, but I just wonder, I'm curious to ask whether you kind of envision how your style will progress in the same way you said you kind of are conscious of, you know, that you want your photography to evolve. I just wondered if that's the same with clothes.
I don't know. It's funny because it's like, again, like the main reason I kind of started down this road and started wanting to get into the industry was because I was just a huge fan of menswear. Like I loved, there was all these brands that I loved, and you know, what they were making and how people were wearing it. And so similarly, it's in terms of my own personal style, what I like wearing, that very much has been an evolution over time. And I feel nowadays I'm much more confident in terms of knowing if something's going to work for me or not, but still not being closed off to the possibility of trying new things. So it's hard for me to kind of picture myself 20 years, 30 years down the line. Would I be wearing the same things that I'm wearing now? And I would hope that, yes, certainly that there would be an element of it, but that I would still have the same attitude in terms of trying new things, even when I'm in my 70s. And I think, you know, when you get, hopefully as well, like I will maintain some semblance of dignity and dressing for my age, and it wouldn't be trying things that were, you know, like you're 70, you're 80 years old, you can't really get away with that. So, but yeah, so it's hard to picture how I exactly would be. It's probably going to be very similar to what I'm doing now. As my wife keeps reminding me that I dress very much like an old man already. We get into quite a few arguments. We've gotten into quite a few arguments over lockdown purely because she's I'll come down and I'll be wearing an outfit, and she'd be like, "Oh, you're dressed like your dad." I'm like, "I'm not dressed anything like my father." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And she's just kind of like, "Oh, well, you know, like you're wearing like this, you know, he wears a shirt, knitwear, and jeans." And I'm like, "Yes, but these are different. This is this kind of like, this is being knitted woven this way. This shirt is you know." And I'm like, and I catch myself sometimes, and I'm just like, "Yeah, I probably am dressing like my dad, actually."
That's this
So,
this
yeah.
thing wrong.
I don't know. It's hard. It's hard.
Dad style is in, Jamie.
Yeah, exactly.
What is it? It's like you get dad is just like it's just added onto everything. It modifies every item of clothing. You get dad hats, dad
Yeah.
jeans, dad trainers. It's I guess it's kind of normcore. Would you say dad style is normcore?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because like there's all these. It's interesting because like a few people have asked me recently about like trends in menswear, and it's like the funny thing is that the area that I'm dealing with it's a particularly niche area. Or you know, very small. It's not like I'm not dealing necessarily with anything that's particularly high fashion or haute couture or anything like that. So a lot of what I'm into and shooting is tailoring and, you know, workwear and vintage and, you know, some streetwear and in terms of the way that guys dress, it's like that's almost always been there to some extent. And so the trends may just be like, oh, I don't know, like you say, people are wearing less ties now, but it means, you know, that probably will come around to the point where people will be sick of not wearing a tie, and it'll be like there was, you know, in the early aughts or mid aughts or so when, and because I saw this at Drake's, was that, you know, people were suddenly like, no, I'm choosing to wear a tie. It's not because I have to. So it's like all the kind of, and now all the kind of dad, you know, the dad stuff, and it's like, well, those like dad jeans, like they've always been around. It's just like people are now choosing to wear them in a different way and in a different style. But those cuts of jeans and that wash they've always been around. So yeah, it's interesting. Like, as you say, it's suddenly the attachment of dad to everything. It's kind of, I don't know if it's a way of like, I think it's just a way of like branding something, the trend that's going on or whatnot. It's a kind of an easy way of doing it. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think I think Normcore is really kind of passé. It's old news, isn't it? Now, I think I was listening to this very good podcast called Throwing Fits. Have you heard of it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and they had Jonah Hill on, and Jonah Hill apparently just on air just coined the word snorcore, which I thought was pretty cool. It's kind of maybe your outfits weren't dadcore, they were snorcore. I'm not sure. That rhymes.
I'm gonna use that. That's good. I mean, it's such a fun thing because, like, certainly, I mean, this was the latest pod that Jonah did for them? Yeah. Because I remember one of their old ones or the last time they had him on, and they were talking about, and this is where I'm always like very wary of kind of, you know, the phrases or terms that get coined in kind of, you know, the fashion industry or menswear or whatever, because it's, you know, what is it? He was talking about that famous shot, or famous in menswear, but the famous shot of him where he came out of his apartment or whatever with like the Phoenix Suns basketball jersey and like tailored trousers on. And he literally told the story. He just said, he was like, basically had said to his sister, he's like, I'm going to go outside and screw with these journalists or these, you know, photographers these paparazzi that are waiting to photograph me. I'm going to wear something crazy. And then basically that blew up and everybody was just like, oh, really? Like, this is amazing. This is this new thing. I'm like, he was doing it as a joke, but everybody's just like, oh, this is incredible. And I'm like, so you got to take everything with a pinch of salt. Like, as he's like the normcore movement or whatever, it's kind of just like, it's probably like, you know, just a bunch of these guys, like, were just kind of all hanging around one day, happen to be wearing relatively simple outfits or whatnot. And suddenly like and then a journalist has kind of like put the term out there and it's suddenly become this huge, you know, this is what the movement is, so to speak, whatever.
I remember seeing a photo of Jonah Hill. It was a photo. He was taking a selfie, and from afar, this photographer for the Daily Mail took it, and they put it on their Twitter or something, and they captioned like Jonah Hill tries out I don't know what do you call it when you have gold teeth or
a grill.
yeah, Jonah Hill tries out a grill or like shows off his grill, but then it showed Jonah's selfie and he was like wearing a yellow gum shield, so it's kind of yeah, just expectation versus reality.
Yeah.
Shifting gears now, I would well, obviously you were an actor for a while. I'd be interested to I'm just shamelessly ripping this out of the Guardian Q&A. I want to know whether who you would want to play in the film of your life.
Oh my God, yeah.
Who would want to play you? Yeah.
I was thinking about this. I was like, it's always one of those questions where you're late night drinks or whatever with friends, and it's always just kind of like, oh, if what actor would be, who would you? And I'm like, I think it's such a loaded question as well, because you're kind of like, you instantly like, right, I'm gonna pick somebody super handsome and really, really, really ripped, and it's just like that's nothing like no, you got to be more, more accurate with it. And then it's like, is it somebody who looks like you, or is it the personality of that person that is more you got to adjust for it? But yeah, I mean, it's weird because like throughout my life I've had very curly hair, and then at one point, so I've always had Will Ferrell. Used to get called that at school, which is very original. It was like we both had curly hair. I was just like, oh, good one. Or but then weirdly, it was I got sent this quite a few times actually on Instagram, was that last Seth, well, maybe it was last, but the Seth Rogen film with Charlize Theron, where Long Shot, and he was on the advert for it was on all the London buses, and he was basically wearing like glasses and like what looked like a kind of a relatively kind of that Ebbets Field flannel kind of cap, which often when I'm out shooting is kind of my kind of go-to uniform. It's just kind of nice and easy. And I had so many people, and he had a beard. And so basically everybody was just kind of like, hey, I didn't know you were starring in a movie. And I was kind of like, ha, 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 very good. So yeah, probably, yeah, Seth Rogen or Will Ferrell probably, yeah.
Or maybe
I'm not picking Hemsworth or anything.
Well, it's kind of a stupid question. You could probably just play yourself. It depends on whether maybe you'd need some heavy prosthetics if you were playing yourself as a kid. I don't know, but you could like put your you could like kneel down and put your shoes on your knees or something. That old trick.
Oh my gosh! I swear, if anybody ever did that I actually now really want to see that in a movie now. Just like rather than like getting a kid actor in to play your younger self, just like a 50-year-old man just playing themselves, but just like with shoes on their knees. That would be amazing. That'd be so good.
It reminds me of did you ever see on Netflix Wet Hot American Summer?
No, I never watched that.
Oh, it's so good. It's the original was made in 2000. It has like these A-list celebrities, but like before they were A-list, they were coming straight out of acting college. I had like Amy Poehler and I've forgotten everyone's names. The guy from Limitless. Anyway, and they were like playing 16-year-olds. They were obviously too old to play 16-year-olds. And then they came back. Netflix made a serialized sequel in 2015, and they were playing like 16-year-olds again, but they were like 50, and it was just entirely wrong, but very, very funny. But anyway, maybe we should talking about you putting shoes on knees to play yourself as a child. Maybe we could talk about your childhood. Did you grow up in Dollar in Scotland? Is that right?
So I was born in a town just outside of Toronto called Guelph in Canada.
Oh yeah.
So my mother and father my mother's from Scotland, my father's from Northern Ireland. and so my father was a university professor, and so that's what took us over to Canada, so I was born and raised there till I was about 15, and then we moved back to Scotland in '98. And then I basically had my formative high school years in Dollar. So oddly, we moved back to the village where my mother used to live, and then went to the school. She also attended Dollar Academy, which oddly, so her and her siblings all went to this school, and there were still some of the teachers that taught them were still there when I got there. They weren't there for that long. They retired after, I think it's the 2 years I was the first year that I was there. But it was just a bit strange, but in a way it was quite nice. It kind of slightly come full circle, and it's one of those things where at the time you don't appreciate it, but now that I'm older and I like the fact that I was very lucky to be able to kind of go and do that. And then was at university up in Aberdeen, drama school in Cardiff, and then London, where I was with my wife we were there for about 8 years, I think. Yeah, 8 years. And then we moved, and we've just recently moved over to Northern Ireland, because we had a son 3 years ago. And so, as I say, my father's side of the family is from here, and my wife's side of the family is from here as well. So we have a lot of cousins who also have children who are roughly the same age as my son. So it's just nice to kind of come back. And we've been in London for a while, and kind of enjoyed our time there. And it's just our as we got older, our priorities changed a bit. And so so it's been nice. And so, but I still travel back and forth quite regularly.
That's nice.
Yeah.
What was it like in Dollar? I imagine kind of, because I because I'm such a professional journalist, I looked Dollar up on Wikipedia, and
Sure.
and well, it's probably not the most recent record because
Sure.
Basically I was interested in these drawings by this Chinese translator called Wang Tao who drew Dollar. It looks pretty small, but this is like in 1867, so I'm not sure how big it is. But
it's not.
I was wondering if you had ever heard of Wang Tao at all, if you'd gone on Dollar's Wikipedia maybe.
No, weirdly never gone on Dollar's Wikipedia page. No, I mean it was interesting growing up there. I mean, having come from a very like I don't know how to describe it, a very North American way of growing up, from and so the school, having high school over there to kind of essentially a place where suddenly I was having to wear a school uniform, and I always remember distinctly my first day at school at Dollar was rainy, and everybody had on their wool blazers, and we were in the assembly hall, and I remember the place just stank of like kind of almost wet dog, that kind of. I was just like, and I basically was like, this is my life now. I'd left all my friends in Canada, and I was like, oh God, this is my life. And I remember when the year that I'd come over, I was just about to enter. My mother was concerned about my education because she was like, the timing of, in terms of your age, it was slightly different from Canadian high school to the Scottish curriculum. So she was like, I want you to have 2 years. Like, she's like, you sit somewhere in the middle anyway. So she's like, I want you to have 2 years for your standard grades. So she's like, we'll go into this year. You'll be one of the older kids in this year. But it means that you'll have a bit more time to study. And I was, 15 at the time, was like, okay, Mom, like, I trust you. Let's do this. And I remember the first 2 kids that I met who just happened, because we moved, when we kind of came in just before school had started, I remember meeting these 2 kids who just happened to be 2 of the more smaller kids in the class. And I just remember being like, I'm going to be a giant, and this is nuts. Like, I just remember it being like, they look so young. This is crazy. This was such a bad idea, Mom. Why did I let you talk me into this? And then eventually I met everybody was like, okay, actually, yes, I'm actually one of more of the smaller people. And it was funny coming to Dollar as well, because it was such a, I think, I don't know if all UK schools, but it was a very singular sport focused school. So, and having played a lot of different sports in Canada, they had to come over where all they played was rugby. And I was just kind of like, having not really played much contact sport when I was in Canada. And just then suddenly like, oh great, like I'm gonna have to do this. This is fantastic. And it was weird. Because I remember being like, for the first kind of month or so, it was just like, an adjustment and kind of being really bummed out. But I just like ended up, when I left, just ending up having had the best time that I could possibly have had. I really enjoyed it. I came into like in a really amazing year, and we were all kind of pretty friendly. There wasn't that too many kind of cliques and groups and stuff. We were all fairly one unit, which it was great. That was really nice.
Ooh. Did you wear like the old school rugby shirts, like the ones that are fashionable now, or are they kind of nylon-y horrible?
Yeah, it's hilarious. I'm like suddenly drinks and everybody like Beja are selling these kind of, made in Canada Barbarian and Camber or whatever, like thick cotton rugby shirts, where I was just like, this is what I used to wear. Like, this is what I used to wear when we played, man. And like, I'm like, wait, but I've got to pay like 4 times the price now for it. Like, this is mad. And it's so funny seeing that, because I have a couple. I got a similar kind of weight of one from Battenware, and every time I put it on, I'm like, in my head, I'm kind of like, oh no, I've seen how this is more kind of like an outdoorsy kind of blah blah blah. But then every time I always find whenever I put it on, I'm always just like immediately brought back to, I'm like 16 years old again, and kind of just wearing an oversized rugby shirt and just getting absolutely smashed on the field. So it's just a slight PTSD, but no, it's funny seeing all these kind of brands that kind of bring that back in now.
Yeah, I kind of feel cheated, because my school is kind of the era. I'm not sure. I'm not even now. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't bring in old school shirts because they're fashionable. It's like, that's not how school works, I'm afraid, with uniform. But I had this horrible, like long sleeved, like polyester thing. It was like thick. It was like a rugby shirt. It was like, I really didn't like wearing it. Like, growing up in school, I wasn't very fashion conscious, but even in my mind, I did not enjoy wearing that. But maybe now I'm at uni, I've got my eyes on the there's a website where they sell merch, and they've got because I play rugby at uni, and they've got a college rugby shirts, which I'm pretty tempted in purchasing. I'm not sure if it'd be very practical on the pitch itself. I would imagine I don't know, just lots of material to grab onto, and just so I'm not sure if you can tell from the camera, but I'm not the biggest guy, so I think I cannot afford any disadvantage.
Sure.
I'll stop venting about my rugby woes. So maybe we can talk about. We've kind of done the bookended stuff of old age, young childhoody stuff. Maybe we should go for the now, and talk about just the menswear industry. I was wondering, as I've kind of used this time at home to kind of cultivate my interests in fashion, whatever, and as I've been following more people or whatever on Instagram and seeing all the photos and recognizing the same faces, and it kind of dawned on me at whatever point that I'm not sure if this is an accurate observation, but the menswear industry seems like a very tight-knit community of people. But would you agree? Is it kind of, do you kind of get to know, make friends with people at events, and you see them again and again?
100%, absolutely. And again, certainly within, again, this small realm of kind of the men's that we're discussing. Absolutely. It's the world is much smaller than you think. And oddly, as I say, the fact that more and more brands and stores have kind of been created, that's almost shrank it even more, because there's now this dialogue between all of these. So, things like, obviously the internet and social media have kind of also spurred that on, and helped to shrink the kind of the world, compared to what it was before. I mean, as I say, like, certainly now you have these, Instagram relationships where it's like you've never met the person, but like they're like one of your good friends because you chat all the time, and you have that common bond through the menswear and through the kind of the clothes and the brands that you're both into or whatever. And certainly now, like, again, it's that there's multiple connections, because I'm really into this, I'm really into this brand, but it also will mean you'll probably like this and this brand. And so if you're going to an event for said brand, you'll most likely meet other guys who are also into that brand. And then you go to another one, it's like the same people are going to be there, because everybody's kind of into, as I say, into kind of the similar aesthetic.
And is it kind of, are the meeting points in terms of IRL? Is that like events like Pitti, Uomo, Florence, where you kind of, is it kind of like is it kind of weddings and funerals and families? That's where you see everybody.
Yeah, I mean, Pitti is I absolutely love Pitti Uomo. It's something that I was obsessed with before I got into the industry. One of the reasons I got into the industry, being very privileged to attend it for the last kind of 10 years. And certainly that trade show, compared to maybe the other fashion weeks, like in, it's kind of different now, but before, when we had LCM in London and Paris and Milan, there's so many brands there, and so many international, people there from other, from brands, from journalists to buyers, and everybody's just packed into this one, Italian fortress, basically. And it's become, this biannual trade show has become one of my favorite times of the year, because not only do I get to see a lot of amazing fashion and amazing style, and see brands that I want to, I've maybe not been able to go and see their product in person, that I've maybe only been able to view online, but you're also able to meet up with all these kind of friends that you've made, and people that these connections that you've made online, or and the fact that it's also open to the public. I mean, essentially, which I think is a really amazing thing, is that this trade show is essentially, you can, as a member of the public, you can buy a ticket to it. So it's really made it obviously it's always been a super international affair, but now people who don't necessarily have a connection to the industry, like who aren't working for a brand, or being a journalist or a photographer or whatever, now people can come and, just because of the enthusiasm, the passion that they have for the clothing industry, they can come and see and meet, these characters from the brands, like, who are heroes, for certain people and stuff like that. And I think that's a really amazing thing. And I don't think you really can't, there's really nowhere else where that kind of happens, particularly. And obviously it takes place in Florence. It's like one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Amazing food, architecture, culture, art. It's phenomenal. The fact, super privileged to be able to do this, twice a year. So I'd be very gutted that, understandably, for understandable reasons, but very gutted that, it's obviously being set back so many a couple of times that it has. And I'm even, it'll be interesting to see, how things move forward with it, certainly. I mean, I know they pushed it back to January, but even then, with everything that's going on, that's not a guarantee. It's not certain. So, hopefully hopefully that will soon kind of be back in everybody's lives.
Yeah. I didn't, because, as I said, I've only really got to know, the menswear industry, whatever, and events, until recently. And I've just kind of realized that this event exists. And I'm like, wow, that would be pretty cool to go and meet people, meet people that you read about or whatever. But I'm not sure if I go there, I'd probably be starstruck. Has there been a time when you like see somebody that you've always really admired and you're like, whoa, it's them? And have you ever been starstruck in that way?
100%. It was a really weird thing because I tried to explain to any friends who aren't into clothing, and they're kind of like, the way that you're talking about somebody, it's like you're talking about meeting Brad Pitt, and they're kind of just like, wait, this guy's just he makes jeans, and you're just like, no, but they're not like just you don't understand. And it's like, no, absolutely. I mean, certainly like a lot of the guys, like when a lot of the Pity Woman images started coming out with Scott Schumann and Tommy Ton, like those guys, like the Spanish owner from Man 1924, Kamishita, Yuki Amine, the guys from Beams, the guys from Drake's. It was certainly, absolutely starstruck. I mean, I'm not the kind of person, I don't have the kind of personality where I feel like I would be able to go and approach someone and just be like, hey, how's it going? Like, I feel like I need to prepare a little, or I need to be introduced to them more organically rather than just kind of straight up going up to somebody and being like, I'm a really big fan of your work. Like, it's weird. And so, I've had many awkward encounters, certainly in my earlier years of attending Pity, where that happened. And like anything, it's the fact that I've been attending it more now and have been able to establish myself or focusing on whatever it was that I was doing at the time, whether it was, working when I was working for Dax or, working for Drake's, and just focusing on the work that I was doing and trying to be the best you can at that. And it's like people would almost take more notice of you through that rather than say, I'm going to wear this cool outfit and like people are going to see me and they're going to be like, who's that guy? Which was my initial approach. Certainly in the first couple of times I attended, I'm like, I'm going to wear this. I'm going to wear these double monks, and like, Scott is definitely going to shoot me. He's not shooting me. What is wrong with my outfit? Like, I thought this was so cool. And it's funny because that kind of extends into like, because people kind of ask a lot of advice sometimes, like, in various aspects of the industry, and I'm kind of just be passionate about something and just work your butt off at it, and people will notice you that way rather than trying to do it. I don't know, trying to be too surface with it.
Indeed, that's certainly the impression that I get with especially members of the public who are just. Alex Svekvich said, people wear their Sunday best to the event. I want to say that I wouldn't do that, but I probably would if I ever go, if I ever make it out there, if it ever happens again. All these things,
sure,
we're not sure of.
Yeah,
but I think that's been a really great discussion, conversation, interview, whatever you want to call it. Thanks so much for joining me, Jamie. It's really appreciated.
No worries. Thanks for great to talk.
Is there anything that you want to say to the Oxford Blue readership or watchership before we sign off? No, nothing at all. Hopefully, people who are watching this is able to get at least one thing out of this. As however small or however big it may be. Just hopefully people have enjoyed it and got some enjoyment out of it. Amen. Thanks, Jamie.